John Hook's Newsmaker starts now.
Thanks for joining us on Newsmaker this Saturday. I'm Ellen McNamara in for John Hook, who is traveling home from the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. In a few moments, you will hear from Maricopa County Supervisor Bill Gates about a new role at ASU and why his goal is to restore public confidence in our elections. But we begin now with John Hook. Just like the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, John spent the entire week in Chicago, and I caught up with him right as it ended. It is really good to see you in Chicago. And I mean, let's be frank, the Democratic Party, they're amped up right now. And that is the purpose of a convention. You want to get people fired up. You want to get the base fired up so that when they go home, they're going to work to get their candidates elected, right?
That's it. That's really it in terms of in this hall. Yes. And to reach out to Democrats across the country to try to get them motivated and behind the ticket and wanting to do the hard work of knocking on doors, handing out flyers, sending out mailers, making phone calls. It is so tedious a campaign to try to drive it home and get over the finish line. It's remarkable. But yes, that is all the big part of this. But for Kamala Harris, the bigger issue is trying to reach that small sliver now of undecideds. And this goes for Donald Trump too. The people who could decide this election, Ellen, we're talking about maybe 500,000 people in the whole country, maybe 600,000. That's how narrow this thing is. And it's on a razor's edge. And you wonder, for the people who haven't figured out what they're going to do, it may be because they just don't know Kamala Harris. They're waiting to see. And the question is, will the convention define her enough that people get a sense of who she is and her biography?
Yeah. We always talk about the battleground states. I mean, we have a show about battleground that you're on, I'm on, and we are always talking about Arizona. And, you know, there was time that was given to Congressman Ruben Gallego, Senator Mark Kelly, former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords, and that highlights the importance of our state. I mean, the ticket, they have to win Arizona or the other battlegrounds to win this thing.
Yeah, Arizona's in that mix. It may not be at the very top tier like a Pennsylvania. It's in the mix of states. Right now, Trump is still polling pretty well in Arizona. So Republicans feel like they will win Arizona. Kari Lake's Senate race is another matter. She's been lagging Trump in the polls in Arizona for months. She's never led Ruben Gallego. So this is this crazy dynamic in Arizona where the top of the ticket is performing pretty well, and then Kari Lake is not performing as well. And so, you know, it shows you that voters are very discerning. They will decide who they think is best for the job. We see this in Arizona. It's the Barry Goldwater streak that runs through our state. Independent thinking, pick the best person for the job, and you will see people's ballots. A lot of times, they're all over the place. Yeah. There's a Democrat they vote for, a Republican they vote for. We get a mixed bag now in Arizona.
Yeah, we definitely do. And obviously, you know, Trump went to the border on Thursday, had the rally on Friday too, and we're going to continue to see candidates coming to Arizona. I mean, this is a sprint to the finish line now.
We've never seen anything like it. You've got a campaign so truncated now that you're dealing with 75 days, 74 days. It's an insane schedule to try to define, particularly for Kamala Harris. Yes, she's been vice president, but as we found out when we went out in the streets of Chicago, a lot of people do not know who Tim Walz is. They don't know much about Kamala Harris. The one thing we do know, the wrong direction numbers for the country right now is 2/3 of the country. For Kamala Harris, that's a big hill to climb, because there's obviously dissatisfaction with what's going on in terms of direction of the country. And she's tethered to that, like it or not, because she's number 2 behind Joe Biden. She's been part of this. She's going to try to separate and say, well, you know, I didn't really oppose fracking. I want border control now. You know, you name it. There's all kinds of issues out there where there's been a complete move to the center. And can she pull that off? That's interesting. It's very interesting to watch.
Yeah, there was an interview that I was watching that Nancy Pelosi was talking with someone from Politico, and she said, go to the middle. Literally, that is what she said. So, some of the issues you were just mentioning, if that's where she's going, we'll see. We definitely will see, but we are running out of time, to see that. You have covered so many conventions.
That's right.
I'm kind of taking a step back right now. You've heard a lot of roll calls at these different conventions, and you probably know where I'm going with this. Night 2 of the DNC, I feel like we saw a roll call that will probably change roll calls for the future. I mean, we had a DJ amping up the crowd. It turned what is typically kind of a dull, typical, boring kind of a procedure into something that was pretty exciting. You had Lil Jon come in. I mean, it really was an innovative way of doing it, but I think that it's something that both parties could learn from moving forward.
And we've got to give you credit because you saw this and you called this right away, that this is where the conventions are going to go in the future. I think you're absolutely right. The roll call, which was kind of a pro forma deal, is now becoming the gender reveal. You know what I mean? It's going to be spectacular, a TikTok moment, the Little John deal. I think we're going to get a lot of this, and I'm trying to think in Arizona, what would we do? Would we run Alice Cooper down the aisle?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. Charles Barkley, I have no idea.
Yeah, well, it certainly was, it was fun to watch. And I think, people on both sides of the aisle, when you saw it, you had fun. And people, even, Republicans are going, wow, that was innovative.
Well, it was. It was very innovative, and I think we're going to give you the credit. Maybe the roll call's been changed forever after that spectacle Tuesday night. Yes.
Yeah, we will see. Okay, so early voting begins here in October. What are you going to be kind of looking at? I mean, I know, there's so many different groups of people in Arizona that could tip it one way or the other. What are you going to be kind of watching in the couple of months, but days to come?
I think when we start early voting to kind of see who's really mobilizing that ground game to get out mail-in voting. Republicans in Arizona used to own mail-in voting. By the way, it was Republicans' idea in Arizona to do this 30 years ago. They came up with it. And then Democrats in that last cycle during COVID, they took it and for the first time outperformed Republicans on mail-in voting in Arizona. They have figured this out, that you've got to bank votes. You've got to bank votes. Get it in the bank, because then it's in there and you can't take it away. On Election Day, if you leave it to Election Day, which was what Trump was urging, Kerry Lake a couple of years later was urging it in the governor race, people get busy. Stuff happens at home. Kids get sick. They don't end up at the polls. You cannot go down that road. It's too dangerous. Republicans have figured it out. They learned the lesson the hard way. We'll see if they can get out there and get those votes banked. If they don't, they're going to be in trouble.
Yeah. All right, John Hook reporting from Chicago all week long. Thanks so much for your reporting. And of course, you were at the RNC in Milwaukee not too long ago. Safe travels, and we will see you when you get back here. And then, of course, we will have full election coverage moving forward until November. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Ellen.
Welcome back to Newsmaker. Ever since the 2020 election, Maricopa County Supervisor Bill Gates, along with other officials, have battled misinformation. They and their families have been targets of online and personal attacks, really horrible attacks. They had people show up to their homes to harass them, and they have had multiple death threats. The Republican, though, has never wavered, but it has been a tough road. Gates has been open about battling PTSD, battling members of his own party, and even testified on Capitol Hill about election integrity. Now, he's not running for re-election, but he just announced a new path. And Supervisor Bill Gates is here now to fill us in about this new direction. Bill, thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So tell me about this new role at ASU and how it came about.
Yeah, so my new role is that I'll be a professor in practice at the ASU Watts College of Public Service and Community Solutions, in addition to being the executive director of the Mechanics of Democracy Laboratory. So I'm very excited about this opportunity. It's something that I had spoken with ASU administration about, really capitalizing on the opportunity to have a center or a laboratory where we can help to train the next generation of people working in elections, as well as addressing some of that misinformation that's out there about how elections are run in our country.
And this really is going to be a collaboration across the country, right? We're not just talking about here in the Valley. This is going to include really all institutions and whatnot, right?
Absolutely. There are every jurisdiction runs elections a little bit differently, but for the most part, there are a lot of similarities across the country. And ASU is well positioned, particularly with the California Center in downtown Los Angeles, as well as its facility in Washington, D.C., to be a key place to convene folks, to have discussions about elections administration, best practices, and also providing the truth to people about how our elections are run.
And also, I mean, we were talking about downtown. I mean, downtown Phoenix, you have the School of Journalism nearby, you have the Sandra Day O'Connor Law School, and that really is kind of an important partnership, right?
It really is. There are sort of three legs to this. One is those people like folks on the Board of Supervisors and recorders who help to run the elections. Then you have the reporters, of course, in the Cronkite School who provide information and basically the truth about how our elections are run, but also lawyers have been a very important part of this, as people have gone to court to have an opportunity to litigate whether these elections were run properly, and people were given the opportunity to present evidence. So all three of those schools are located right next to one another in downtown Phoenix, and it is, in my opinion, sort of the optimal location for the Mechanics of Democracy Laboratory.
Yeah, there has been a lot of litigation, as we know, as you know too. And I think ultimately, I mean, as an American, you want people, good people, to run for office. And I think we're kind of at a point right now, and you would probably, I'm assuming you could speak from experience, where people maybe who have a family, they're going to shy away from serving because of, misinformation, because the fact that their address could be doxxed. You could have people show up to your house, you could have your children be harassed. And even if it's not, I mean, it's not warranted, obviously, but certainly if it's not warranted because of misinformation. And I'm assuming that you want people to serve and to, protect American values.
Yeah, not only do I want people to serve, but in particular, I want people, good folks, to help continue to run our elections. And so what we need to do, and this has been an important part of how we've handled things in Maricopa County, is to build very strong relationships between the elections officials and law enforcement. I couldn't ask for a better partner than Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, Phoenix Police Department, the FBI. I think we've been a model here in Maricopa County, and we're seeing this around the country. It's sad that we have to have these discussions when we're talking about running elections, but it's vitally important. Nothing more important from my perspective than our elections workers feeling safe doing their jobs, and also the voters feeling safe exercising their fundamental right to vote. And so we've had a focus on that. And this is another thing that we hope to do at the Mechanics of Democracy Laboratory. Work with the School of Criminology, work with other experts in law enforcement as to how we can continue to protect this important element of our democracy, the right to vote.
Yeah, misinformation, it's been a serious problem. Now with AI, it will likely only get worse. I want to play now a clip, though, from a meeting that just happened last week when the county certified the primary results. It happened during the public comment period. I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. It was the interaction between Supervisor Thomas Galvin, who is a Republican, and a woman named Barbara Hyatt, who happens to be married to Don Hyatt, who just lost in the primary. I mean, that's an example of misinformation where someone, and she's not the only person who believes that either, too, that Russia is a better place to cast a ballot than in Maricopa County, right?
Well, I mean, if it's really sad if people believe that, because I would certainly concur with my colleagues' comments there that Russia is no democracy. The people's right to vote is not protected. Their elections are not legitimate. Frankly, I never thought I would hear something like that in America. Let me be clear. I think it is the right of every resident of Maricopa County to come and speak during public comment. That's something that we all believe in. We think it's fundamentally important. But I think it's also important that we clarify the record, and that is the comments there made were absolutely incorrect. But there's also a reference made to elections being run more efficiently in other countries. And this is the type of thing that we really want to dig into at the laboratory to help people understand why they can get the results so much quicker in France. Because in France, they have one item on the ballot. It's the presidential race. For example, in Maricopa County, in the general election, we will have dozens of races that will be on the ballot. So it takes people longer to vote the ballot, and it takes longer to tabulate the ballots. I understand people's desire to want to move very quickly with results, but I will take accuracy over speed every time when it comes to elections. So these are the very type of issues that we look forward to helping to educate people on, to help debunk some of the misinformation that's out there, but then also to welcome people into discussions, including those who may not see things the way that we do. We've got to start having those discussions with people from all different perspectives. That's the only way that we're going to start to heal these divisions and start to address this misinformation.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing that's missing right now, just discussions and actually listening, because if you are in an echo chamber, either way, it doesn't matter, right, left, whatever, people have to listen and be willing to accept the truth, right? Real information.
Exactly.
You've been a diehard Republican your entire career. You started a Republican club in high school. You talked about some of the division, and there certainly is division within the Republican Party right now. What are your thoughts about the Republican Party?
Well, I think that, the Republican Party has shifted over the past few years. And I think that it's very important that the party get back to the principles that Ronald Reagan believed in, really those principles that made me a Republican back in the 1980s. And I think if we can get back to those sorts of perspectives and get back to being a Big Tent party, that it's going to lead to better policy and it's going to lead to Republicans winning more elections. But my role as we go forward into the November election, of course, is to make sure that this election is run well and that we provide people the information that they need and the opportunities to vote. And we're so proud of that here in Maricopa County. I would argue there's no jurisdiction in the country that has more opportunities to vote and different ways to vote. You want to vote early at home? You can do that. You want to vote early in person? You have that opportunity as well. And if you want to vote on election day in person and bring family members with you, you can do that too. We have been focused on this as a board, working in concert with the recorder. And so right now my focus is on us running another great election in November, just like we did with the primary earlier this month.
Yeah, and it is.
We're actually in July, sorry, July 30th.
Yeah, and it's fast approaching, and those early ballots go out, in early October. So you guys are going to have a lot of work ahead. And then, of course, we wish you good luck at ASU, and thanks for all that you do for our county.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on the show.
And we'll be right back. Thanks for joining us for Newsmaker. I'm Ellen McNamara. John Hook is back next week.